Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Here's a story you won't forget. The fridge light was still on. That's the first thing I remember after vanishing. That stupid, humming, flickering bulb. I don't know why I opened the fridge. Maybe I thought I'd take one last look at the life I was leaving behind. A jar of her pickled onions. The almond creamer she insisted was a shared favorite, even though I'm lactose tolerant and never liked almonds. Maybe I just wanted to see if anything still responded when I opened it. Because she didn't. Not for months. There was no shouting. No final fight. No cheating text caught on screen. Just 1,000 paper cuts that bled me dry in silence. Like the way she laughed harder at her phone than at me. Like the way she turned her body just slightly away when I reached for her. Like how she said, "You always make things heavier than they are." That line repeated in my head as I walked out the door. You always make things heavier than they are. I'm sorry, Soraya. I didn't know vanishing weighed so little. I left everything, except the envelope. The one with all the photos. Not digital ones, but the real ones. Smudged, curled at the corners, smells like dust and sunscreen. Us and Big Bear. Us painting the spare room we never turned into a nursery. Her asleep in my hoodie the day after my dad's funeral. Her smiling. At me. I took that envelope like it was oxygen. And I disappeared. No texts. No calls. I left my wedding ring in the egg tray of the fridge, tucked between the carton and the cold. She wouldn't miss it there. Not right away. Maybe not ever. Now she's on a hunt. I've heard from people I haven't spoken to in years. A florist. A former landlord. My old guitar teacher. She's retracing footprints she used to ignore. She wants to know why. But the truth is, I don't think she deserves the answer. Because if she ever really looked, she'd know I didn't leave her. She let me go. The irony still eats at me. The first person who noticed I was missing wasn't Soraya. It was a guy named Chester who works the midnight shift at the gas station near our old apartment. I used to stop by there after work sometimes to grab ginger ale and quietly cry in the parking lot before heading home. That man, with his crooked smile and nicotine-stained fingers, looked genuinely concerned when I didn't show up for a week. "You good, Elwood?" he asked when I finally passed through town again weeks later, hidden behind the wheel of a borrowed car. "You disappeared, man. Figured you were either dead or done." I wanted to laugh. Dead or done. I guess I was a little of both. Soraya, on the other hand, didn't notice I was gone until her car key didn't work in the door. I had the locks changed, bank accounts split, utilities rerouted, all weeks before I actually left. I'd been planning my disappearance in plain sight, like a magician practicing his final act without an audience. And when I finally pulled it off, no applause. Just the sound of a fridge light buzzing in the silence. She texted me the next morning like nothing had happened. "Hey, can you grab oat milk on your way home?" Home. As if that word still applied to me. She didn't ask where I was. Not until the third day. That's when her texts started piling in. The first ones were casual, like I had forgotten something small. "Hey, did you take my charger? Did you see my blue scarf? Did you happen to move my birth certificate?" Then came the cracks. "Okay, this isn't funny. Are you mad about something? Elwood. Seriously, what is going on?" And finally, the spiral. "Please. I'm scared. Did something happen to you? I can't sleep. Call me." I watched those messages come in from a prepaid flip phone. I didn't respond to any of them. It was like watching someone try to revive a plant they forgot to water for a year. And now they're sobbing at the roots, begging it not to die. But it's already gone, Soraya. You let it rot. What she didn't know, what she still doesn't, is that I had already seen everything I needed. Weeks before leaving, I bought a burner phone and installed a simple app. It let me mirror her screen. I didn't even have to hack anything, just a shared Apple ID she forgot to remove me from. I saw it all, the messages from Nolan, the way she saved his name as Vera in her contacts, the photos she sent when she told me she was out with the girls. She even joked about me once. My husband still thinks I go to yoga. Bless his heart. Bless his heart. That line broke me in a way I didn't even feel at first. It was like standing in front of a house while the fire silently spreads through the walls. You don't see it until the smoke chokes you. I wasn't perfect. I wasn't exciting. But I was real. I was present. I was the guy who took her to every follow-up appointment after her surgery. The guy who missed a work promotion to help her mother move across the state. The guy who knew how she liked her pillow fluffed and how she hated the sound of zippers. I paid attention. And all the while, She was slowly trading me in for a version of herself that didn't include me. Now she's trying to find me, through mutuals, online posts, even calling my old therapist. But I'm not leaving breadcrumbs. I'm not coming back. And I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing it because some goodbyes deserve no words. It was on the 9th day, I think, that she went to the police. I had been tracking everything quietly, watching the breadcrumbs she was finally willing to scatter, now that the man she once ignored had become an empty space in her world. I wasn't surprised that she didn't tell them the truth. She didn't say, "My husband left me because I erased him slowly over 3 years while I lied to his face and laughed behind his back." No, what she told them was that she feared something had happened to me, that she was worried I was suicidal, that I was fragile and emotionally unstable. That last part, that was Rich, the same woman who used to roll her eyes when I tried to open up, who once told me I needed to man up because I got quiet for 3 days after my best friend died. Now she was sitting across from a uniformed officer painting me as a delicate mental case, like she was my savior in a Hallmark movie. But the thing is, I had already covered my tracks. Carefully, legally, cleanly. No laws broken. No threats made. Just gone. When the officer called my old workplace looking for information, my boss, Wendell, told him the truth. He resigned, paid out his unused vacation time, left everything tidy, even cleaned out his desk, and left a note thanking the team. Wendell didn't know where I was either. No one did. And that's what scared her. Because Soraya wasn't afraid I was hurt. She was afraid I had finally learned how to hurt her back, by taking away the one thing she had always taken for granted, my presence. A few days later, she started getting bold. She showed up at my sister Laurel's house. I had warned Laurel not to give anything away, but I didn't have to. Laurel never liked Soraya. They'd had a quiet war for years, 1,000 passive-aggressive skirmishes fought through birthday cards and forgotten holidays. When Soraya appeared on Laurel's porch in tears, trying to claim she was worried, Laurel simply handed her a box. A small one, wrapped in plain paper. Soraya didn't open it until she got back to her car. And when she did, she screamed. I know because she texted me that night, for the first time in 3 days. Just one word. Why? Inside that box was the burner phone I had used. Wiped clean. But taped to it was a single photo. Not of her. Of Nolan. It was a screenshot of him in a video call, shirtless, grinning, holding up a glass of red wine. The timestamp? 7:52 p.m. The exact minute she had texted me from the living room saying, "The yoga instructor is running late. I might be home a bit after 9. And taped to the back of that photo? The receipt. The very first one I found. The one that started all of this. No words. No threats. Just evidence. She wanted answers. But I wasn't playing that game. She had spent years dodging truth with cleverness, with manipulation, with smiles that never quite reached her eyes. Now it was her turn to sit in silence and wonder what came next. And I knew exactly how that silence felt. I'd lived in it every day of our marriage after year 5. After I stopped being the reason she lit up. After I became the man she tolerated, not the one she missed. After she started editing me out of her future, one moment at a time. Now she was trying to turn back the clock. But I wasn't a moment. I was a man. And I was done being invisible. The first time I opened the video, I wasn't sure what to expect. It had been a week since I sent the box. Since the last message, just why? She'd gone quiet. That's what made the video all the more jarring. No warning. No subject line. Just a file. 28 seconds long. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe an old clip. But as soon as it started, I knew it wasn't. She was sitting in our kitchen. My chair. Her face blotchy, makeup half-worn like she hadn't bothered to clean it off from the day before. Her eyes were wild, like she'd forgotten how to blink. The window behind her was open. You could hear birds and traffic and something clanking against the neighbor's fence, but her voice cut through it all. "Elwood," she whispered. Not cried. Not begged. Whispered. "I know you saw things. I know. But you don't know everything. You don't know why I did it." I paused the video right there. I should have deleted it. I should have walked away. But like an idiot, I hit play again. She went on, talking about loneliness, about feeling forgotten, about how I wasn't the same after my dad passed, how I vanished emotionally long before I did physically. She talked about Nolan like he was a fluke, like he just showed up during a vulnerable moment and made her feel visible. She said that word like it was some kind of justification. Visible. Like that's all it took to set fire to 12 years of memories. Like seeing yourself in someone else's reflection was reason enough to erase the man who stood by you when you couldn't even look in a mirror. I watched it twice. The second time, I didn't even blink. When it ended, I sat still for maybe 2 minutes, then walked to the bathroom and threw up. Not from the words, from the silence that followed. Because that silence? It was exactly how our marriage sounded for the past 5 years. A void. A slow-motion collapse behind smiles and holiday cards, and "we're just tired" excuses. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I had nothing left to say. When someone burns down your house and then mails you the ashes with a love note attached, what do you write back? I spent that night in a tiny motel 2 towns over. I paid in cash. The room smelled like mildew and had a humming vending machine just outside that clinked every hour like clockwork. But it was quiet. I needed quiet. At 2:14 a.m., another message came in. Just a photo this time. It was my old hoodie, the gray one with the ripped sleeve and coffee stain on the front. She had it folded neatly on the edge of our bed. And under it, the envelope. The one I took with me when I vanished. The one with all the photos. She found it. She wasn't supposed to. I'd left it in the crawl space behind the water heater of the old apartment, on a whim. I don't know why. Maybe part of me wanted her to find it. Or maybe I just couldn't bear to destroy it completely. But now she had it. My proof that we did exist once. My memory bank. My unspoken goodbye. I didn't sleep after that. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Because now she had the one thing that still had pieces of me inside it. And if she was holding that, then I knew what was coming next. She wasn't going to let go. I shouldn't have gone back. I told myself I was just passing through, just needed to drive by once. One time, just to see the place from the outside. Our old house. The place where she started forgetting me. Where I started losing myself. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance like I was sneaking up on a crime scene I already confessed to. It was quiet. The porch light was still flickering the same way it used to when I begged her to call an electrician. She never did. "It's just a bulb," she'd say, brushing me off. Funny how that tiny blink felt like home now, more than she ever did in the last few years. I stood across the street under the shadow of an elm tree and just watched the windows. It was all so painfully familiar, like walking through a dream you thought you'd forgotten. The couch was still pushed too far to the left. The front curtain still snagged at the bottom where the dog used to chew it before we gave him away. And in the kitchen window, I saw her silhouette. She was wearing my hoodie, the same one she sent a photo of. She'd washed it, probably, but it still looked worn and saggy in the sleeves. Like it remembered me better than she did. I should have turned around. I should have left right then. But I stood there too long. And then she looked up. I swear to God, it was like her head snapped toward the window with a force that didn't make sense. Like some invisible thread had tugged her attention straight to the sidewalk I was standing on. She didn't blink, didn't squint, just stared. I froze. My breath caught like I'd been punched in the chest. We locked eyes from across the street, and I knew she saw me. But she didn't run, didn't open the door. She just stared, like she was afraid to move, like she thought if she blinked, I'd vanish again. And then something even stranger happened. She smiled. It wasn't the grin she gave to Nolan in her texts. It wasn't the polite, performative one she wore to barbecues and birthdays. It was small, sad, real, like she'd just seen a ghost and didn't know whether to be afraid or grateful. I turned and walked away. Not quickly, not dramatically. Just walked. I didn't look back. But I didn't have to. Because 20 minutes later, back at the tiny rental I'd been calling home, someone knocked on the door. 2 sharp taps. Then silence. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I stood in the hallway holding a carving knife I hadn't touched in years, barely breathing. I waited 5 full minutes before cracking the door open. No one was there. Just a small object left on the doormat. It was a key. My old house key. The one she said she lost 2 years ago. I used to keep it on a brass chain that I wore when we first moved in. It had a tiny, scratch charm on it. A stamped copper circle that said "Found." I picked it up with trembling fingers. Attached to it with string was a torn scrap of notebook paper. Only 2 words written in her handwriting. "Me too." That was it. No explanation. No name. Just "me too." I didn't sleep that night. Because I knew what she was doing. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was starting a game. And she knew exactly how to pull me back in. The next day, I smashed the phone. Not because she called. Not because she texted again. But because of the voice message. It came in around noon. A soft vibration from the burner tucked deep in the drawer I'd promised myself not to open again. I shouldn't have checked it, but I did. Maybe some stupid part of me wanted to believe she'd finally said the one thing I'd needed to hear. I'm sorry. Instead, what I heard made my skin crawl. I played the message on speaker. It was her voice, cracked, nervous, and shaking with something I couldn't identify at first. Elwood, she began, almost whispering. You're not answering, I know. But I need to tell you something. It's not about us. It's about Nolan. He's not who you think he is. He's not who I thought he was either. She paused, then breathed hard into the receiver, like she was trying to push something terrible down her throat. The kind of breath people take before confessing or collapsing. He came by, not long after you left. I didn't let him in. I was scared. He was angry, Elwood. He wasn't like that before. He asked me if I told you about the trip. The one to Cleveland. The conference I said was for work. I stood frozen, my hands clenched. I knew exactly which trip she meant. I remembered the way she packed so lightly, the way she avoided eye contact for 2 days after coming back. I had asked her if anything was wrong, and she said, no, just tired. That lie had gone down so smooth, I didn't even flinch. But she kept talking. I didn't know back then, she said. I swear I didn't. But when I looked through the messages again, through the photos, I saw it. Things he said, things he planned. I think she broke off. There was a shuffle, like she was checking the door. I think he knew where we lived even before I gave him the address. I think he found me on purpose, Elwood. I think he was watching us. The message ended abruptly. No goodbye, no explanation. I played it again, hoping I had misunderstood, hoping it was paranoia, desperation. But the fear in her voice wasn't performative. It wasn't the guilt-ridden cries of a woman trying to win back her husband. It was real. And for the first time since I left, I felt something other than anger. I felt danger. I pulled open the drawer where I kept the box of things I'd taken with me. Documents, photos, the envelope. I flipped through the contents and my stomach twisted. 2 of the pictures were gone. Not all. Just 2. One of us at the state fair, her in denim shorts, me with cotton candy stuck in my beard. And another, us in the driveway, arms wrapped around each other, a faint outline of our address visible on the mailbox in the background. Someone had taken them, and I knew it wasn't me. I stood there, the room spinning around me, my heart thudding in my ears like I was standing on railroad tracks, and the train was already coming. This wasn't about closure anymore. This wasn't about heartbreak or betrayal or even revenge. Something else had been set in motion. And for the first time since I disappeared, I realized I hadn't actually escaped. I had just gone deeper into the maze. I couldn't sit still after hearing that message. The walls felt too close, like they were leaning in, listening. I shoved everything back into the duffel bag. Papers, phone, charger, burner, wallet, even the kitchen knife I hadn't returned to the drawer since she knocked on my door. I drove west with no plan, no destination. Just the question boiling inside me. What really happened in Cleveland? 3 hours later, I was in a cheap roadside diner somewhere between nowhere and regret. I hadn't eaten, but I kept stirring my coffee like it would unlock answers. I had a name. The hotel she claimed to stay at. I remembered it because she'd left a notepad from it in the glove box once. Cedar Crest Conference Center, it said, along with their corny slogan, rest easy under the pines. I didn't even know what I was hoping to find. Proof of something? A receipt? A witness? Maybe just a place to stand and feel the air where she lied to me. I searched the place online. No website. Just an outdated listing on a third-party travel site with 2 stars and reviews that used words like dingy, off, and gave me the creeps. Perfect. It took 4 more hours to get there. The front desk was behind scratched glass, and the woman running it didn't look up when I came in. I asked if there were records from a conference back in May. She said, "We don't do no conferences here. Just cash and check-ins." I pushed the name Soraya Everston toward her, along with a 20. She squinted at the logbook. "Everston, yeah? May 12th, room 214. One night. Paid cash. Alone." That was a lie. I knew it. Soraya didn't carry cash. She hated it. Said it made her feel like a criminal. And she didn't go places alone, not unless she had a reason to hide. I asked if she remembered anything else. The woman shrugged. Had a guy show up late that night asking for her. Said he was her brother. "We don't let unregistered guests in." He got loud. Weird loud. What do you mean? I asked. He kept saying things like, she told me she was ready. She promised. She scratched her temple with a chewed pen cap. He just stood there for a while, staring at the front desk, like he was trying to decide if he should break the window or break down. Then he left. I told security, but by the time they got there, he was gone. She didn't have a name, but she remembered his face. Tall, dark jacket, scar on his cheek. I knew that scar. I'd seen it once, briefly, in a photo Soraya didn't know I saw. A selfie in a bar mirror. She was trying to look casual, but the arm around her was unmistakable. The hand holding her hip had a silver ring with an anchor on it. The man behind her was slightly turned, just enough for me to catch the edge of a scar that ran from his temple down to the cheekbone. That was Nolan. Except, Nolan wasn't his real name. That's what I found out when I finally did what I should have done months ago. Reverse searched the number she used to text him. His real name was Carter Doylan, and his name came up in 3 different court records across 2 states. All sealed. 1 dismissed. 1 settled out of court. 1 still pending. The most recent case involved stalking, digital impersonation, unauthorized access to a personal home security system. It was dismissed due to lack of cooperation from the victim. I sat on the motel bed in Cleveland reading that document, my hands going numb. And for the first time in this entire unraveling, I stopped thinking about what she did to me. Because I realized something horrifying. Maybe Nolan, Carter, hadn't just used Soraya. Maybe he'd found her, followed her, gotten inside her world the same way he'd gotten inside mine. And now I was alone. No allies. No backup. And he still had photos of our house. I thought disappearing would protect me, but I might have made myself the easiest target of all. I spent the next 3 days living like a fugitive in a life I chose. Looking over my shoulder, sleeping with a chair against the door, triple-checking my phone settings in case Carter, Nolan, had somehow slithered his way into my devices too. It was a strange kind of fear. Not fear of being hurt exactly, but of being seen again by either of them. But the part one hadn't expected? Somewhere in all that paranoia, I felt something else rising beneath it. Not anger. Not even sadness. Relief. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't playing someone else's version of me. I wasn't trying to be enough. I wasn't trying to forgive the unforgivable. I wasn't trying to hold a marriage together with the brittle threads of memory and obligation. I was finally just Elwood. And when I realized that, something clicked. I didn't want to hide forever. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life letting Soraya and Carter control the end of my story. I wanted a new chapter, one where I wasn't the guy sobbing on the bathroom floor or whispering apologies to myself in the mirror. So I went back, one last time. Not to our house. That was no longer mine. I went to the lake. Our lake. The place from the photo. The one I had almost burned. It was late afternoon, summer breeze sweeping the water into soft ripples. I sat on the same bench we used to claim on Sunday mornings. Back then, she'd lean her head on my shoulder and say nothing, and it felt like the most sacred silence in the world. Now, that bench belonged to me. I stayed there for over an hour, just breathing, just being. And when I finally stood to leave, I saw her. Soraya. She wasn't close. Maybe 20 yards back, frozen on the gravel path, one hand clutching a small folder against her chest. Her hair was a mess. No makeup. No performance. She didn't move. Neither did I. And then, slowly, carefully, I raised my hand. Not a wave. Just a gesture. A final acknowledgement. Yes, I see you. You were real. We happened. But we're done. She didn't cry. She didn't run to me. She just nodded. And I walked away. I don't know what was in that folder she brought. Maybe divorce papers. Maybe letters she never sent. Maybe the photos I left behind. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I kept walking. And this time, I wasn't running. I checked into a small cabin about 4 hours north of the city. Bought a local number. Opened a fresh account. I started sketching again, something I hadn't done since college. Landscapes, mostly. Sometimes faces I remember. Sometimes just abstract feelings I didn't know how to write down. The kind of peace I found in that silence was unlike anything I'd felt in a decade. And one morning, I opened my inbox, the new one, not tied to anything from before, and found a single message. No subject line. No signature. Just 5 words. I hope you're free now. I didn't reply, because I was. And I still am. If you've made it this far, thank you. Sometimes stories aren't just about betrayal. They're about rediscovering yourself after surviving it. Now it's your turn. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever disappeared from someone's life? Or has someone disappeared from yours? What happened when they came back or didn't? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories right here on Reddit Confessions.